Okay, so there are four controls that France has over its former African colonies. And these four controls enable France to extract over $500 billion annually from these countries. And it is these four controls that guarantees France the payment of colonial tax by these countries. There are 14 countries in all situated in West and Central Africa. And every year they pay what has come to be known as colonial tax. In other words, they pay tax to France for colonizing them. And these controls are so important to France that if anybody tries to break out of this system, it's taken out. Patrice Lumumba of Congo tried it and was taken out. Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso tried it and was taken out. So whenever any leader tries to rebel against this French control, the person is taken out. However, today, there are three leaders who are trying to break out of this French neo-colonialism that has bedeviled the continent forever. And these leaders are Traore of Burkina Faso, Tchiani of Niger Republic, and Goita of Mali. These leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger Republic are currently fighting France for their sovereignty, for their freedom, for their emancipation from this neo-colonialism that is choking them. And now the big question remains, can they succeed? And if they succeed, at what level will their success be? Will it be at level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4? Since there are 4 control elements that France has. So what are these control elements? And how can these countries successfully break out from them? Or is it even possible for them to totally break out from these elements? So the 4 controls that France uses to ensure its domination over these countries are 1, political influence and control, 2, military influence and control, 3, economic influence and control, and then 4, which is actually the most important, the most powerful, is financial and monetary control and influence. So now let's quickly dissect them one by one and see how these countries have succeeded or failed in their attempt to break free from each of these elements. Okay, so by political influence and control, what France has done is basically to make sure that whoever is in power in the country is the person appointed or nominated or chosen by France. In other words, they install their puppets, either directly or indirectly. And once these puppets are there, these puppets have no choice but to allow France unfiltered access to their resources. So these 3 countries have broken that. None of the 3 of them is a puppet. They are independent of France. They are not chosen by France, they are put in nor installed by France. So number 1 is checked. Number 2 is the military control and influence. Before now, what France did, and in those other countries that they are still controlling, is that they have their military bases in these countries and they are in charge of the military, in each of these countries, so that the military of the country is subservient to the military of the French in that country. And they use this military to, protect the president that is supposed to be their puppet, and also to protect the companies that are out there, especially the mining companies that are out there digging resources from various parts of the country. So they use the soldiers to protect them and ensure that they continue to extract these minerals, which eventually gets to France and France gets to sell. Number 2, we can check it. We'll pick it for these people. They have all succeeded in kicking out the French from their countries, and they have only their indigenous soldiers, and have invited Russia to help in protecting them. So number 2, we shall pick. Then number 3 is the economic control and influence. With the economic control and influence, here you have the French companies getting the first option to every contract in that country. So whether it is roads you're building, whether it is mining that you want to extract, whether minerals or oil and all that, the French companies get the first option of refusal. They have to be approached. They decide whether they want to do it or do it, and all the time they want to do it, and then they'll give you their terms, not you giving them your terms. They will give you their terms, and you have to accept it. So they get to do it. Now, in this situation, we will not give them 100% fake, because there are so many of those companies still operating in the Sahel. in these countries. What they have done is basically to renegotiate the terms of the contracts that they had previously with them. In other words, if they had a contract to say extract or to mine some minerals at $1 per ton, they will tell them, no, we're no longer going to do it at $1 per ton, we're now going to do it at $5 per ton. So you give us $5 instead of $1. They've renegotiated a lot of these contracts because they do not have the wherewithal, the equipment, the technical knowledge, and even the financial muscle required to operate some of these mining or petroleum companies. For example, to build a refinery or even to extract oil, we all know the huge investment that you need. So they are not exactly totally free from French influence when it comes to these economic activities that France has been 100% in charge of. However, they're also bringing in other companies to compete with France. And then if France had 100%, they are kind of stepping it down to maybe 80%, whilst the ones that are still handled by the French have been renegotiated. So that brings us to the fourth and final one, which is financial and monetary control. Now, this is the most problematic and the most difficult to break free from. For you to have an independent monetary control, there are a lot of things that have to be on ground. Apart from having a central bank, you need to print the money, you need to back your money with gold, you need to also have your money internationally accepted. If you don't have all these things, then you're not going to be in charge of your monetary control. Now, the Sahel states have been coming together, meeting and planning to start their own currency. But, even when you print your currency, it needs to be accepted, because if it was that easy to just print currency and start using it, then the BRICS countries will have established their own currency. There are so many things when it comes to financial regulations, at the international level. The SWIFT system of transfers and all that. All these people have to accept your currency and then also your monetary policies for you to be able to operate. I'll give an example of a country that has its currency, but it's not accepted. Somaliland, for example, is a country that broke out of Somalia. In fact, they got their independence from Somalia in 1991. They have their own government, they have their own elections, they have their own military, they have their own currency. But Somaliland has not been recognized by any country. So it's stuck in Somalia. So even though it has its own monies, its own currency, nobody uses it. They are stuck. And what this does when people do not recognize your currency is that you will not be able to attract international investments. So this will be the greatest challenge that these three men will have, because how do they get people to accept whatever currency that they come up with? You need the international community to accept it and to be able to attract investments in that currency. So this is their greatest challenge, and I do not know how they'll be able to solve it, but it's going to be a very tall order for them to solve it. Because even ECOWAS can decide, okay, we are not going to accept this as a medium of exchange, we will not recognize it as a currency, since you're supposed to be a part of ECOWAS. There are international communities will listen to ECOWAS because those are the people that they control. They are working on it, but it's a problem that will be very difficult for them to solve. We'll see how they get around it, in the interim. But so far, so good. We'll give them thumbs up. They are doing so well so far. We pray that they succeed, because that is the only way we will become economically free. Because that's the only thing that is holding us. The only thing holding Africa is economic freedom. We are free, yet everywhere in chains. We do not control our resources. That is our greatest problem. We do not control our resources. And if these people can't succeed, then they will set an example. They will set a chain reaction for the whole of Africa to emulate and to succeed. Thumbs up to them. That's it.